So when you click buy now on a pair of headphones or, a bag of coffee, you aren't really thinking about the server architecture, right?
Definitely not. I mean, you're not thinking about the robot moving a pallet 3 states away.
Exactly. You just want the box on your doorstep in like 24 hours.
hmm
But the source material we're diving into today, it's from Strategies for E-Business. It argues that all that invisible machinery, that's the only reason the modern economy even functions.
And we're looking at a case study of the two absolute titans of this world,
Yeah,
Amazon and Alibaba.
right.
And what I love about this analysis is that it doesn't just treat them as, the American one and the Chinese one.
Yeah.
It argues that while they both dominate retail, they are playing two completely different sports.
Mhm.
They have fundamentally different DNA.
The supermarket versus the shopping mall analogy, that was the first thing that really, really clicked for me in the reading.
This perfect frame.
Because on the surface, they look the same. I go to a website, I search for a toaster, I buy it.
From the user's perspective, sure. But the business model is what's so different.
Yeah.
Amazon is the digital supermarket.
Right.
In a supermarket, the store buys the bread, puts it on its own shelf, sets the price, and sells it to you. Amazon is obsessed with the buyer. They want to control the entire experience, from the click all the way to the doorbell.
Which means owning everything. The warehouses, the planes, all the inventory.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with Alibaba. They're the digital shopping mall.
Okay.
If you walk into a mall, the mall owner doesn't own the stuff in the gap, right? They just own the building. They provide the electricity, the security, maybe the foot traffic. Alibaba is obsessed with the seller. They don't want to touch the boxes.
So Amazon wants to own the railroad, and Alibaba just wants to sell tickets to the station.
That's a fantastic way to put it. And that fundamental difference in philosophy control versus empowerment, it explains everything. How they grew, how they make money, even how they're led.
Let's dig into the Amazon side first. The empire, as the study calls it. Because there is this misconception, I think, that Amazon is just a retailer that got really big. But the section on service-oriented architecture suggests it's actually a tech company that just happens to sell socks.
This is the most critical part of Amazon's success.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's the hardest part for anyone else to replicate. It all goes back to that API mandate in the early 2000s.
Oh man, the Bezos memo. I've heard about this. Didn't he basically threaten to fire everyone?
So legendary. At the time, Amazon's internal engineering was just a mess. Teams were building tools just for themselves, and they weren't talking to each other.
It's a total silo.
Total silo. So Bezos sends out this memo, and he says, effectively, from this day forward, every team must expose their data and functionality through external interfaces. You have to communicate with each other as if you were strangers.
And the kicker was,
Anyone who doesn't do this will be fired.
wow, subtle.
But think about what that forced them to do. If the HR team built a tool, they couldn't just build some messy internal hack anymore. They had to build a polished, productized service that other teams could just plug into.
Which means eventually you can just flip a switch and sell that exact same tool to the outside world.
Exactly. That is the birth of AWS, Amazon Web Services. They built the server infrastructure for themselves to handle Christmas traffic, but because of that mandate, it was modular enough to sell to Netflix and the CIA.
And now AWS makes up this massive chunk of their operating profit. But the study points out they did the same thing with logistics, right? With fulfillment by Amazon?
Same playbook. Amazon spent billions building these incredible high-tech warehouses. That's a huge cost. But then they turn around and said to third-party sellers, hey, you can use our warehouses too. You send us your stuff, we'll pick it, pack it, and ship it with Prime.
It effectively turns their biggest expense into a revenue stream. It's genius.
But it does something else, which the author points out. It forces internal competition. If Amazon's own logistics team is too slow or too expensive, those third-party sellers will complain. So the internal team has to stay competitive with the open market. There's nowhere to hide.
That's that dog fooding concept. You have to eat your own dog food. If it tastes bad, you fix it fast.
Right. But there's a darker side to this empire model that we have to talk about. The whole private label strategy.
Yeah, this is where that referee versus player tension comes in. Because Amazon owns the marketplace, they have perfect data, they know exactly what I'm searching for, what I clicked on, and what I eventually bought.
And just as important, what you didn't buy because it was too expensive.
So the example in the case study was Wag dog food.
A classic case.
Yeah.
Amazon looks at the data. They see the pet food category is exploding, worth something like $30 billion. They see everyone buying these premium brands like Blue Wilderness. They know the margins. They know everything.
So they just spin up WAG, make the packaging look kind of similar, undercut the price, and then just blast it to Prime members.
And of course, place it right at the top of the search results.
Isn't that kind of cheating? You're hosting the game and playing in it at the same time.
Well, that's the biggest antitrust argument against them right now.
Yeah.
But from a pure strategy perspective, which is what this source is analyzing, it is just brilliant efficiency. They let other companies take all the risk of inventing a new category, and once it's proven, Amazon swoops in to harvest the profits.
Ruthless. Okay, so that is the empire. All about control, efficiency, owning the infrastructure. Let's pivot now to the alternative, the Alibaba ecosystem.
Jack Ma, the founder, has a philosophy that's almost the exact inverse of Bezos. He famously said, Alibaba is not a company for consumers.
Which just sounds insane for one of the world's biggest retailers.
It does. Until you finish the quote. He said, we are a company for the sellers. His whole view was that Amazon is trying to eat the whole pie. Alibaba wants to make the pie bigger so that millions of small businesses can all get a piece.
And this leads to their iron triangle model, e-commerce, logistics, and finance. But let's start with this asset-light idea. They're the shopping mall. Doesn't that make quality control a total nightmare?
Oh, absolutely.
That
is the trade-off. If you don't own the inventory, you have way less control over whether that Gucci bag is real or a knockoff. And Alibaba has struggled with that reputation for years.
Right.
But by not owning the inventory or the warehouses, they can scale infinitely faster.
Because they don't have to buy the land or build a building.
Right. It's like the difference between a taxi company and Uber. A taxi company has to buy the cars, pay for maintenance, pay for gas. That's Amazon. It's capital intensive. Alibaba is Uber. They just own the software that connects the driver and the rider.
And the financial side of that is just wild. The source highlighted the operating margins.
That's the stat that just jumps off the page. Amazon's operating margin has historically hovered around, what, 2 to 4% because of all those heavy assets?
Yay.
Alibaba, they have historically operated at around 30 to 31%.
Wow, 31% versus 2.
That's the power of being the landlord versus the shopkeeper. You have virtually zero variable cost for each new seller you add.
But the part of the Alibaba story that really blew my mind was the whole trust element. Because in the US, we kind of take trust for granted. I put my credit card into a website in 1999, and I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get robbed.
You cannot overstate how different the environment was in China in the early 2000s. There was no credit card infrastructure, no real consumer protection. It was the Wild West.
So if I'm a buyer in Shanghai and I send money to some seller in Beijing...
You are probably never seeing that money again if the seller disappears. And vice versa. If the seller ships the goods, the buyer might just ghost them. So the entire e-commerce economy was just deadlocked. Nobody would move first.
And this is where Alipay comes in.
Jack Ma didn't just build a PayPal clone. This is the key. He built a digital escrow service. And that one distinction saved the company.
Okay, walk us through that. How does the escrow change the whole dynamic?
So, you want to buy my widget, you send the money to Alipay, Alipay holds it, and then it tells me, okay, the money is secured, ship the goods.
Right.
So I ship the box, you get it, you open it, you check that it's actually what you ordered, and you tell Alipay, I'm satisfied. Only then does Alipay release the money to me.
It completely de-risks the transaction for both sides.
Exactly. It solved the trust deficit. The source argues that without this single innovation, e-commerce in China just what? It wouldn't exist. They didn't just build a store. They had to build the entire commercial infrastructure of a nation.
It's amazing. They had to build a financial institution just to be able to sell T-shirts.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Amazon optimized a system that already existed, credit cards and FedEx. Alibaba had to build the whole system from scratch.
Speaking of building from scratch, let's talk about the architects. The source material contrasts Jeff Bezos and Jack Ma as the quant and the monk.
It is such a vivid comparison. Bezos is the quant. He was a hedge fund guy before Amazon, you know. He sees the world in data streams.
That whole day one mentality.
Exactly. He is obsessed with preventing Amazon from becoming a slow, bureaucratic day two company. He wants decisions made fast. He has that 70% rule. If you have 70% of the information, make the call. If you wait for 90%, you're already too slow.
It sounds incredibly efficient, but does the source talk about the downside? It feels a little cold.
Oh, it's incredibly demanding. It creates a culture of high churn, high burnout. It's a machine. You are a cog in that machine, and if the cog isn't performing, it just gets replaced.
Now contrast that with Jack Ma, the English teacher.
Who failed his college entrance exams twice. He loves talking about that.
Right.
He positions himself as the underdog. He openly admits he doesn't know how to code. His whole focus is on culture and vision.
I loved the detail about Forrest Gump.
It's his favorite movie. He loves the idea that you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room to win. You just have to be the most persistent. He talks about naive innocence.
And Crazy Ma.
Oh, the costumes. He would rent out stadiums for Alibaba's anniversary, dress up like a punk rocker or Michael Jackson, and perform for like 20,000 employees.
Yeah.
Can you even imagine Jeff Bezos doing that?
I absolutely cannot. But it worked for Ma, didn't it? It built this cult-like loyalty.
It did. But the risk there is that it becomes a cult of personality. When the leader is the culture, what happens when that leader leaves? Or, when the leader gets in trouble with the government? We've seen recently that Ma's flamboyant style eventually put a target on his back.
So we have the quant optimizing the machine and the monk rallying the believers. But here's where the story gets really messy. The source material suggests that these two very different models, they're actually starting to look alike. The convergence.
It was inevitable, really. They're both hunting for growth, so they're invading each other's territory.
So Amazon is becoming more of an ecosystem?
Yes. They realize that high margins are nice, so they're pushing their advertising business, Amazon Marketing Services, which is pure profit, just like Alibaba's model. And they're relying more and more on third-party sellers.
And Alibaba, on the other hand, is realizing that relying on other people's trucks is a huge bottleneck.
Exactly. If you want 24-hour delivery, you can't just hope the local courier does a good job. You need control. So Alibaba, through its Cainiao network, is buying land, buying robots, investing heavily in physical assets. They're becoming the empire.
But the biggest battleground now seems to be the physical store. This whole new retail idea. Amazon bought Whole Foods. Alibaba has Hema.
And this is fascinating because it's not just about selling groceries. It's about solving the last mile problem.
Explain that. Why does an e-commerce giant need a grocery store?
Okay, think about the cost of delivering a fresh lobster to your door. It's crazy expensive to ship that from a warehouse 50 miles away. But if you have a store 2 miles from my house, that store acts as a mini warehouse.
The Hema example in the text is wild. You can walk in and pick out a lobster, or you can order it on the app and get it cooked and delivered in 30 minutes.
Right. The employees in the store are literally picking online orders at the same time people are shopping in the aisles. It's a hybrid fulfillment center, and it allows them to deliver fresh goods way faster than any pure warehouse model ever could.
So the store pays for the real estate, and the delivery network just piggybacks on top of it.
Exactly. It blurs the line completely. It's not online or offline anymore. It's just commerce.
And the final piece of this convergence is voice. Alexa versus, well, everyone else.
This is Amazon's attempt to become the operating system of your life. The source points out that Amazon often sells its Echo devices at a loss.
Which makes no sense if you think of them as a hardware company.
But it makes perfect sense if you think of them as a friction reduction company. If I can stand in my kitchen and just say, Alexa, buy more detergent, I have completely bypassed the shopping process. I didn't compare prices. I didn't look at Walmart.com. I just defaulted to Amazon.
It completely locks you in.
It's the ultimate moat. It removes the decision-making process entirely.
So we have these two giants converging. Amazon's building an ad business. Alibaba's building logistics. They're both moving into physical stores. The big question the source leaves us with is, who wins?
It's the battle of the moat, right?
On one side, you have Amazon's infrastructure. The warehouses, the planes, the robots. That is a heavy physical moat. It would cost billions and take decades to replicate that.
It is incredibly hard to copy. You can't just code a new fulfillment network.
But on the other side, Alibaba has the data relationships. That network effect of millions of sellers and nearly 1 billion consumers, all connected through Alipay and this whole social commerce aspect.
And historically, in the digital age, the platform usually beats the asset holder. Airbnb beats Hilton. Uber beats the taxi companies. The one who owns the data relationships usually wins.
But can Alibaba sustain that if they don't control the quality? That seems to be their Achilles heel, doesn't it?
That's the billion-dollar question. If Alibaba can't guarantee the product will arrive on time and be authentic, the data doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if Amazon becomes too much of a monopoly and squeezes its sellers too hard, those sellers will flee to a friendlier ecosystem.
It feels like Amazon is betting that customers care most about certainty, just knowing exactly when that box will arrive. And Alibaba is betting that customers care most about variety and discovery.
I think that's a fair assessment. But as they converge, I think we're going to see a hybrid model emerge.
hmm
A world where the mall has its own delivery trucks and the supermarket rents out its shelf space to other vendors.
It's a fascinating evolution. So the next time a package thuds onto your porch, take a second to look at the label
Really look at it.
and ask yourself, did this come from a store that bought it and sold it to me? Or did this come from some vast, invisible network where the store was just the matchmaker?
Because that distinction is what is reshaping the entire global economy.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you in the next one.